Ashe and grand rising, a grand day to you all once again, my fellow humans, not AI, not humankind or human being, humans, natural native earthly humans. And welcome to this, the 24th in the series of another perspective on healthy living with your senior lifestyle advisor. Plus, yes, it is I, the mystic philosopher. Yep, just got in a beautiful Sunday morning, Sunday grand rising, correctly, from the gym, and I said, let me just come and do this thing. I'm feeling good. Give thanks. Also, let me quickly remind you that if you haven't watched episode 23 and all my previous episodes in this series, starting with episode 1 to episode 23, the last one I did, and I ask that you watch them in consecutive order, I strongly recommend that you please do so before proceeding to watch or listen to this episode 24, so you get the most out of it. Let me also forewarn you that this episode 24 will run over my regular allotted time due to all the points that I will be covering and the fact that I would like to wrap up this series and start a new series titled Another Perspective on the Mark of the Beast. So I ask that you please stay tuned. And plus I didn't do any, that took quite long to do this one. Normally I do them every other day, but it's almost a week, if not over a week now since I did the last one. Now, please let me begin where I left off. Let me begin here with this episode 24, where I left off in episode 23, talking about the very rich and famous man, who I call the very rich and famous, restless philanthropist, who, from my perspective, in his torment, in his mental anguish, in his restlessness, that is a restlessness and torment and anguish that is possibly caused by his very sick and guilty conscience, also known as his bad mind. He went to see who? Jesus or Yahushua, in search of finding what? Happiness, aka true abundant life. Most of these rich, famous and guilty people, they always go look shrink or have some form of, they call them their shrink or their counselor or their advisor, you name it, spiritual advisor, etc. Now this man heard about this teacher Yahushua and went to see him. Now all of which is recorded in the Adamic Race History and Holy Book, Adamic Race History and Holy Book, that is commonly known as the Christian Holy Bible, according to Matthew chapter 16 to verse 24. And the one I'm using is the New International Version. Well, I go between them. And my hope is that you, my listeners, may or will see and interpret from my perspective the parallel with those to whom it may and do apply today. From my perspective, to possess the abundance of wealth, of worldly material wealth, also known as to be materially rich, wealthy, famous and powerful, etc., does not in the least mean that one is living a life of happiness. You should get this by now. Let alone living a life of true abundance, also known as abundant life. And this, I think, should be self-evident by now, following all my previous episodes and the emphasis I've placed on the story of the rich and famous philanthropist who, as I mentioned before, went to meet Jesus or Yahushua in his quest for eternal life, eternal happiness, or the abundant life. And we see where this rich man went away sad. And I think very sad and extremely disappointed when Jesus or Yahushua told him the truth and gave him what I, the mystic philosophers, you you no doubt notice in episode 23, what I, the mystic, interpret to be the 4 commandments. Or if you prefer, 4 very strict and straightforward command. Command number 1, as I mentioned before, is go. Command number 2, sell your possessions. Command number 3, give to the poor. And command number 4, then come follow me. For which he refused to comply with the order. From my perspective, he became even more depressed. Not only was he disappointed, but he became even more depressed. He became even more restless. And possible, he became even more ruthless. When you correct these demon-possessed, they sometimes become very ruthless. In other words, like an addict that is addicted to drugs. He was so attached to his worldly material possessions that he would rather continue to live his very short, and in the scheme of what is his very short and insignificant life, in misery. He'd rather continue to live in misery and possibly a life of pretense than to relieve himself of the agony of his worldly and cancerous possessions. Now, one of my regular listeners, who is also a very dedicated and sincere truth seeker, a critical and analytical thinker, having heard my last talk, episode number 23, and some of the things I said about materially rich people, those cocky ones, especially the elites, also known as the elect of the God of this world, who is who? Satan the devil, sent me a very enlightening and informative video titled The 3 Richest World Leaders. Some of you may have already watched or listened to it. It's an Instagram post and it's going around. And I think you may be able to search and find it on Instagram if you haven't listened to it before or elsewhere. I will give a brief comment on it here just to prove my point that from my perspective, neither of these 3 richest so-called world leaders are living or experiencing true happiness, aka abundant life. And under their current circumstances, nor can they. In fact, from my perspective, the way of true happiness, aka the way of true abundant life, they know not. And before I do so, I ask that you please take a listen to the audio from this video. Let me see if I can bring it up here. I don't have all those fancy things to do that, but let me just try and see what I can do here. 1 minute here. Bam. Yeah. Go here. Do this. And then do that. Here it goes.
The 3 richest world leaders. Number 1 will shock you. Number 3, Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the president of the UAE and the emir of Abu Dhabi. His net worth, derived from his family's vast oil wealth, is estimated to be around $15 billion. He owns a collection of supercars, a $600 million yacht, and real estate globally. Number 2, Hassan al-Bolkiah, the Sultan of Brunei, who boasts a net worth of around $20 billion thanks to the petroleum and natural gas fields in his small country. He owns more than 600 Rolls-Royce cars, and his residential palace, Istana Nurul Iman, is the world's largest residential palace. However, the richest of them all at number 1, Vladimir Putin. Putin's net worth is estimated to be as high as $300 billion. He owns multiple luxury residences, a fleet of private jets, and multiple yachts worth billions of dollars.
Okay, so there we go. I'll turn back down this thing here. Yep. Here. Yes. So just to give you, know that you heard that, just to give you an example of what I, the mystic philosopher, perceive to be the vainness, the worldliness, and the gross insanity from my perspective, the gross madness or some say craziness of these 3 humankind. However, at this time, I will only talk about the second. Of the three, I will only talk about the second richest of these three so-called world leaders here and at this time. And no doubt some of you that might be listening to me for the first time might be asking the question, why am I calling these three elites? Why am I calling these three elites and all to whom it may concern, whom else this may apply, so-called world leaders? Why am I calling them so? Everybody know them as leaders and world leaders, and they are being respected and revered as such. Why I, the mystic philosopher, are calling them so-called world leaders and not world leaders? So let me answer that question. From I, the mystic philosopher perspective, a leader, as the word by meaning and definition will affirm, is a person or a thing, such as an animal, that leads. And to lead by meaning and definition, according to one online English dictionary, is, and I quote, to cause a person, and in bracket or an animal, to go with one by holding them by the hand, a halter, a rope, etc., while moving forward. Unquote. You can check it for yourself. Just Google it and you'll find it. So from this meaning and definition of the word lead, coupled with our own practical life experiences, our own observations, and our own activated common sense. A lot of people have common sense, but it is not activated. So I specify here, activated. Remember, this language is not mine, so I'm trying my best to use it to convey my thoughts as accurate as possible. Activated common sense. I think we can sensibly and reasonably conclude the following. Number one, that in the case of us humans leading humans, a leader is one who must first know that he or she knows where he or she is leading those that he or she leads. Or at the very least, he or she must have a roadmap and the proven route to take them safely and to take them there safely and successfully. Another way of saying this is that the blind can't lead the blind. No, the blind can't lead the blind. And if that happens, they fall into the ditch or into the pit. If we allow that to happen, both blind people will fall where? Into the pit, into the ditch. Number two, the leader and those that he or she leads must move forward. Check the definition again. And forward together, and definitely not without each other. You can't have the lead over the side of the river and those that he are leading on the other side, and he's telling them to come over. No, them have to go together and not without each other. And please note that a leader does not lead those that he or she is. Sorry, let me repeat. And please note that a leader does not lead those that he or she is leading backward, but forward. Leading is leading forward, not backward. So by this simple logic, if a person that claims to be a leader that is leading you out of debt or out of poverty and out of conflict, etc., out of war, and each day you discover that you have fallen and is falling deeper and deeper into debt, poverty and conflicts, etc., then you must also know, or at the very least realize, that he or she is not a leader based on the meaning and definition and the expectation of the word. Number three, to lead people to their desired destination is not a guesswork or a trial and error thing. Number four, in all reality and practicality, a leader cannot lead from behind. Some people say they're leading from behind. A leader must lead by going where? In front of those that he or she leads, and must be seen or known to be in front of those who he or she leads, or at the very least must be seen or known to be in front of those who he or she leads. Number five, a leader is not isolated. A leader will not be isolated and cannot be isolated from the people that he or she leads. A leader must literally, physically, and intellectually interact with those that he leads. Number 7, that was number 6. Number 7, a leader cannot be rich and the people that he or she leads are poor and are remaining poor. Nope. Number 8, a leader cannot be getting richer and more powerful every day while the people that he or she claims to lead is getting poorer and poorer every day. In summary, and from an idealistic philosopher's perspective, world leaders cannot be excessively rich and powerful and getting excessively rich and more excessively powerful while the people of the world that they are claiming to be leading are getting poorer and poorer and lesser powerful each day. And thus, from my domestic philosopher's perspective, they are not leaders. They are not leaders. And in as much as I don't know this English language, and I have to seek their dictionary at all time to express the image, the thought, the ideas in as accurately as possible in their language so that those who interpret it may have an understanding, and overstanding. But they are not leaders, but from my perspective, they may be best described as being directors. You can direct from any direction. Directors, instructors, drivers, as in slave drivers, liars, and politicians, aka polite tricksters, etc., etc. But I'll have more to say on that at another time. So I think I answered that question. Why I call them so-called and not leaders. Now, according to the audio from the video that you and I have just listened to, I couldn't play the video, I could only play the audio. You could only hear the audio. The second richest of the 3 is a man by the name of Hassanal Bolkiah. And he is the Sultan of Brunei. Now, quite notable among his insane worldly material possessions, and I quote, he owns more than 600 Rolls Royce motor cars. Can't even call the name so expensive. Over 600. And from my perspective, the brand, model, and the price of the cars are insignificant here. The fact is that according to the video recording, he owns more than 600 of that one model or brand or of cars. And we can reasonably assume that he must own other model cars as well. He said he owned more than 600, and we can assume that he owned other model cars, must have 1 or 2 Benz someplace there, or some other cars. And we can reasonably assume that he and just for argument's sake, let's say that in total he owns, just for argument's sake, let's say that all the cars he owns total up to 730. He owns more than 600. So let's run it up at 730. And thus he drives a different car every day. Then if he and I, the Mystic P, are living in the same world, on the same planet, and in the same 3D reality, where there is still 24 hours in one day and 365 days in our calendar year, and if my math is at all correct, then it would take him 2 long years, which is equal to 730 days, just for him to drive in or be driven in, because maybe he not drive himself. Pay somebody to drive him. Well, let's assume he drive, or he's been driven in and experience his entire fleet of cars. It would take him 2 years to do that. So he couldn't afford to drive in, more than 1 car twice for the year. Now, just ask yourselves these, let's say 3 or more questions, my people. Just ask yourself. Question number 1. What is the purpose of a motor car? Number 2. Can a natural human drive in more than one car at the same moment in time? Number 3, how can a human of naturally sound mind experience and enjoy a life of happiness by owning over 600 motor cars for his personal use? Let me share my answers and perspective on these 3 questions with you. Number 1, what is the purpose of a motor car? And the answer from my perspective is, this answer can be honestly and reasonably summed up as follows. It is to take us, or to take the owner, from point A to point B, or from our starting point to our destination, and to take us there swiftly, or promptly, conveniently, and hopefully safely and comfortably. Question number 2, can a human drive in more than one car at the same moment in time? And again, my answer is this. The answer from my perspective is simply and practically no. In other words, can this guy drive in more than one of his more than 600 Rolls Royce at the same time? And the answer is a resounding no. At least somebody else can enlighten me how he can do it. Anyone that is claiming that he or she is driving in or is driving more than one car at the same moment in time is, from my perspective, insane and completely out of their natural mind. Question number 3, how can a human of naturally sound mind experience and enjoy a life of happiness by owning over 600 motor cars for their personal use? And again, my answer from my perspective here, she can't. The evidence has shown and will no doubt continue to show that a man or a mind that has too many options always end up in confusion and very seldom, if at all, makes the right decision. My late mom would say, you pick and pick until you pick you know what. In other words, you can't really focus on and enjoy more than one thing at the same time. Remember what Jesus or Yahushua said to the rich man that I call the philanthropist that I've been talking about? And I quote, no man can serve 2 masters at the same time. Or no man can serve 2 masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold on to one and despise the other. You can't serve God and mammon at the same time. Remember that? I'm just using that to apply here. For example, if I have a house, or if you will, a mansion with 10 rooms, 10 bedrooms, the truth be told, I can only sleep in one room each night. And if it were to be discovered that I am sleeping in more than one room, or all at the same time each night, then I would not need a medical doctor or a spiritual or metaphysical doctor or a mental health practitioner to confirm the fact that I am both physically, mentally, spiritually, and psychologically unwell, and that I'm haunted, and that I'm tormented. If I have 1,000 pairs of shoes, the truth be told, I will only be able to wear 1 pair of shoes at a time. And the same is true with all my love and respect for my woman. If in as much as I love and respect my natural melanin woman to the max, my practical experience coupled with my own activated common sense shows that I can't have sex, for example, with more than one at a time. Anything else on the contrary is not sex, but it is anything else. In other words, 3 sums, 4 sums, or any amount of sums is not sex, but it is anything else than sex. But again, my people, I promise, I know I ran out of time. I've run out of time for this segment, so please join me in episode 25, when and where I will continue to diligently dissect for you and share with you some more of my perspectives on the subject of abundant life. I will also continue to show and prove my points on the dangers of bad mind, and tell you more on how you may know and how you can know a bad mind person, aka a sick person, and how we may heal ourselves from the curses of bad minds. So please stay tuned. Again, I will ask that if you can, that you please support this series of short presentations called Another Perspective on Healthy Living by simply purchasing your daily supply of lignans. And the lignans I'm promoting is from the Norwegian spruce tree, and the brand is called Fountain of Life. From yours truly, I, the Mystic Philosopher, by clicking on the links provided in the description area below. You may also purchase a digital copy of my song playing in the background called Have You Heard of Fountain of Life? And I have a lot of more songs you'll find on my site that you may like, listen to them and purchase them and support me so that I can produce some more before I exit this dimension. In the meantime and between time, in your becoming my people, I will that you be more and more, not less, aka bless. For I am the Mystic Philosopher. Ashe, 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 I say.